Okay, there we go. Starting a little later today, playing with some new and old technology. As you know, Eleanor, I love this Restream platform because it makes broadcasting really easy and kind of putting a professional, productive flair around it and easy for me. But Zoom definitely makes sharing content and interacting with each other better. So I think we've managed to make it happen. Good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent. It's a nice sunny day, a little bit warm.
Mm-hmm.
Too warm for the dogs to even go out.
Really? Like what temperature is it there right now? It's definitely not that warm here.
92.
Oh, wow. Okay. That'd be nice. I'm hoping for sun this weekend. Got a softball tournament, so I'm gonna go and move this body. Hey, what you been working on?
Well, I finished the proofing of the Beyond Human Design book on channels. And so we're taking pre-orders for that. And I heard from the publisher yesterday that she thinks probably 2 to 3 weeks. We do have the Library of Congress number, so that was a holdup. Anyhow, she has it. It should be, they do a hard copy, then we get proofs again to make sure everything turned out right, and then it goes live.
Is the, what do you call it, Library of Congress number, is that the same as an ISBN number, or is that a separate listing entirely?
Separate listing.
So what's the purpose of that one?
Not all bookstores. For example, I didn't know when I published Cosmic Secrets and Astrology Essentials that if you publish on Amazon and Apple, they're not in bookstores. They're just on Amazon. So in order to get them in libraries and bookstores, you need to publish through other publishers. So we publish through Ingram, which puts it in bookstores and libraries. And you get a Library of Congress number so that it's in the card catalog. The ISBN number protects your copyright.
Okay.
And registers it as having been registered and copyrighted.
Okay. Interesting. Just on a side tangent, I don't know if you've read the Amazon book, but they talked about their early days. And you know, you're a nerdy techie like me. ISBN numbers they treat as like the primary key for everything. Like it's their database key. So even if you were to buy a set of Ginsu knives, they would have an ISBN number, which has nothing to do with its initial purpose. So,
well, it's a registry number, and I registered all kinds of things. You know, all of Ra's audios are registered and copyrighted.
Okay.
You know, it's interesting that you sent me a book yesterday that you found online. I mean, I had published all 13 books before, and they were online, people could buy them and so forth. So there are obviously copies still floating around.
Interesting. Yeah. So is that kind of one of the books? Because it seemed more like a transcription of a conversation that you were having with them. I guess they would be, right? Because that's kind of how, yeah. Okay. So
that's Ra would come in and he would, in some of them, he would just do a lecture. In some of them, we took turns speaking. So like and when I reread the biology book, I haven't read it in a few years, but when the last time I reread it, I went, oof, he really didn't want anybody to say anything except him. And you know, which in a biology seminar made no sense since Marvin was the expert.
Right.
So in any case, so the book is done. I've finished the content for the 5-day experience on the 4 worlds, which will be released July 22nd, I believe. And it will be a free 5-day challenge to give people an experience of, it's called Step Over the Threshold to a New Way of Being in 5 days.
Interesting. Can you give a rough outline of the 5 days? Like what, or are you still working
Day
through what you
one,
do?
no, day one will be giving a taste of the spiritual world and asking people to do a little bit of, and it's going to be short. The videos each day will be not more than 10 minutes. And the homework won't be more than a half hour.
Hmm.
So it's doable for 5 days and everybody can bring about big change. So first day you get in touch with values, spiritual values.
Mhm.
Second day, a physical practice of self-care you want to commit to for the week. The third day is the emotional day, where you look at some emotional reactivity and how to do it differently. Fourth day is the mental world. And there we're looking at gratitudes. And along the way, I give some other tools for people to use to facilitate the release of anything they need to release.
Hmm.
And then the fifth day is integrating all the worlds and learning how to identify what they are and what benefit they have and where you can transform.
Cool. And I imagine you started with the spiritual world and values because that's the bedrock. That's the pillars that you build on, I guess. Is that the intention? Okay,
The
cool.
spiritual world is actually the unified, integrated world of consciousness. And that is where all of us aspire to live.
Hmm.
And part of the pain that people have is that they're not feeling perceived, recognized, heard, valued. Uh, and most of it can be corrected with some simple, I want to say intervention is the word, but I'm not meaning it as a third party intervention. I'm meaning it as if you as an individual recognize something in your consciousness that is important to you.
Hmm.
How you manifest it and how you stand up for it is capable of changing your life.
Hmm.
And part of the difficulty is in our culture, whichever culture we live in, we learn ways of being to be accepted at school, for example,
Hmm.
to be accepted at nursery school now, or children are being put in daycare when they're 3 months old. It means that they're being not conditioned. That's the wrong word that Ra used. It's socialized.
Hmm.
Socialization is different than conditioning. Socialization means you learn how to behave and how to express yourself to be accepted in your culture.
Hmm.
Conditioning is doing something by rote without consciousness, like Pavlov's conditioning. Every time the dog saw the food, it salivated.
Hmm.
It bypasses conscious intervention and choice. Socialization does not bypass choice, but we make a choice in order to be part of the society.
Hmm.
And some people, like yourself, like a little bit of a uniqueness to yourself that is not part of the mainstream of culture.
Hmm.
Uh, so no matter how the culture socializes you, you're not conditioned to be other than yourself. You still have that freedom within the culture to express yourself. If you were conditioned, you would not have that freedom.
Mhm. So many interesting things there. For one, I agree with you. The word conditioning almost seems like we're blaming others that they had intention to make us the way we're behaving that isn't self. And I think we always have a choice in our social settings of what we want
Rod
to
did
serve
not
it.
believe we did.
Yeah, I don't agree with them either, to be honest. I mean,
No, it's
we
no,
observe,
but
right?
it's against human development. Uh, at 3 months of age, which is the timer that I'm using for the integrated charts, when a baby is 3 months old, one of the critical markers of development is that they reach for an object. You have children, you
Hmm.
watch for when they smile, you
Hmm.
watch for when they look you in the eye, and when they recognize you. And then I don't know about you, but when my first child reached toward my face with his hand, it was, you know, such a moment of joy
Hmm.
that there's a relationship here.
Hmm.
And uh, at 3 months old, the baby reaches for an object. And that's choosing to relate to your environment. And we do not and don't condition that. You can't condition that
Hmm. You've
unless you
mentioned,
were making a robot.
yeah, and you've mentioned the 3 month thing before. It's in a slightly different context, I think, but it was like you would have concern about a baby's development if by 3 months they didn't do something. I don't remember what the action was. Was it the fact that they don't
It's
reach out?
reaching
They're
for
not
things. Yeah.
really. It really is.
Well, we have numerous markers
Mm-hmm.
in which is why the timing of the noble energy maps when I got them was like, oh my God, this is real. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the body graph with the calculations held up to science. And when you have multiple disciplines all giving you the same data, it's valid and reliable.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw that I hadn't come up with them, I accessed calculations that made sense astrologically. And it turned out that they were actually timers of human developmental critical periods. That's very profound.
Mm-hmm.
That what I was working with psychologically and biologically, I was able to duplicate astrologically. That gives a whole other scientific validation to astrology being real when it's used properly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one birth chart, it's not being used properly.
Mm-hmm.
We are not one moment in time, and that's who we are. We
Mm-hmm.
are in a process of development. And what is beautiful about using the noble energy maps that go beyond human design, the name of the book,
Mm-hmm.
uh, is that we're looking at somebody's process. We're not looking at freezing them a certain way. So basically, everybody all the time is all five types and has access to all five types within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole different way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it a living, breathing discipline because then the transits begin to fill in and augment what's already there because most people are manifesting generators, which makes sense as a divine being.
Mhm. Honestly, one thing and maybe it's just me oversimplifying, but it just feels like everybody is a manifesting generator lately with the energetics of how people engage with the world right now. Everybody's in a rush, everybody's anxious, and maybe not the word everybody. A lot of people
Well,
are.
we all are designed, Sean, to be manifesting generators every single month.
Mhm,
The moon goes around every month. So every month, as the moon goes around, we become manifesting generators. Now you feel it, now you don't. Now you feel like you need to wait. Now you feel like you need to manifest. Now you want to be social. Now you want to be alone. Now you want to be talkative. Now you want to be quiet. We're all everything.
mhm. And
But how we manifest that and how we process that and how we most feel aligned to ourselves, that's what we're teaching.
mhm. it's it's energy flow, it's energy coming and going. And so if you can even recognize that these types are flowing in and out of you, it's a really interesting way to look at it for me, because I've always been a manifesting generator, even in
Right?
traditional. For me, it wasn't a giant leap or change for me, so I almost think that made it easy for me
No,
when I.
but what it is, Sean, is a broadening of the possibilities
Mhm,
that you are recognizing are really open to you.
mhm.
You're
Well,
not just one-sided.
for sure. And I want to talk about spirituality now, for sure. And
Right?
I like that, even with the course, you're going to start with that. Because
Mhm.
if it was 2 years ago and I was looking at this course and it was going to, even the word spirituality was in it, or it would start with it, I probably would have just tuned it out. I wasn't there. Big changes for me, transformations, experiences, synchronicities, like to the point where I can't ignore it anymore. Um,
And when did it begin?
I've been questioning that this week because I was explaining to now yesterday or the day before what an experience I had when I was like six or well, maybe I was 8 or 9 in school, and it was just one of these things where I keep going back to it, thinking, did I imagine it happened or not?
No, Michael Ray's book, the highest goal. Um, he was a business professor at Stanford, and he started his business class with meditation.
Hmm.
And he talks about knowing your core purpose and the having a numinous experience, that most people have a numinous experience and a sense of their life purpose by the time they're 11.
Hmm.
And in my own clinical experience, almost every client I've ever had has come with a presenting problem that is secondary to feeling like they were not acknowledged for who they were
Hmm.
growing up or in their life.
Hmm.
And so going back to that experience when you were 6, and I want to hear about it, but going back to that may be a very big missing piece for you.
Hmm. Do you want to hear about it? Because to me, it's very strange. It's
Yeah, of
three
course I
events.
want to hear about it.
Okay, well, because even as I was describing, I was like, I feel like I imagined it my whole life. So, um,
And what difference would it make if you imagined it or thought it?
uh, yeah, it doesn't really. It's just interesting. My mind keeps floating back to these memories all the time, and so that's what
It must be so important that you
right?
wouldn't let go of it.
Yeah.
Tell
So
me.
I feel like I was in grade 2. So I'm trying to think of what age I would even be, but I know I wasn't. And anyways, I
Probably
had
7.
7. Okay, so let's go with 7. That feels right. Um, I had a schoolmate.
And let me
Mhm.
add a little piece tidbit in here. At age 7, we have a developmental shift psychologically. And you move away from being a preschooler, and your mind at age 7 can now take in information in a different way. So it's a marker that shifts away from all of the physical developmental acceleration that's happened and moves into a slower growth period that is more about the mind and absorbing information.
Mm-hmm.
That's why school starts at around 5 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened?
Okay. So I had this friend. His name was Chris. I won't use his last name because I don't know where he is in the world at this point. He was from Jamaica, so I think they were recently in Canada at the time. This is back east, and we were pals. We got along really well, really fast. Um, one of the first, and there's 3 things I remember about it, and they're separate but all tied to him. So the first one was that one day, for some reason, he decided to jam a pencil into my knee, and the lead was in my knee for 20 years. Like the mark was there. Now, I don't recall it being a violent thing or anything. It was memorable because it hurt and because it stayed with me in my leg for a long time. I can even picture where it was on my leg still. So no big deal, but just something like it was like a marker I was given. It was like I was stamped. So then I have this separate memory that I can't escape, which was that one day I went to his house and he wanted to show me this ship in his backyard. And in my mind at the time, I think it was a TV show called G-Force, and it was like a cartoon show, and it was like this. They were like G-Force was kind of like superheroes, and this was their spaceship to fly around. And he said, "I've got a full scale replica of this in my backyard." And I just was like, "Okay, whatever." That's how I remember it. But in my mind, I saw this thing and was in awe of this thing. So it's just a separate memory, but I've long since convinced myself that I saw nothing. But the
But did you
third,
go to his house and see it?
that's what I remember. I couldn't describe the house. I couldn't say what else we did there. So I pretty much had convinced myself that I had fabricated that in my imagination.
Mm-hmm.
But the third thing that happened was shortly after that. I think I knew this kid 3 to 6 weeks. Like I don't think it was a long time. One day he wasn't at school anymore. And it turned out that his father had murdered his mother and then jumped off a bridge and killed himself. And then Chris was whisked away back to Jamaica to live with his aunts and uncles.
Oh.
Like he was in and out of my life in 6 weeks. But there was these 3 events that until talking to Now about it yesterday, I'd never really connected the 3 in any way. They were just 3 distinct events. One that I completely disregarded, the ship thing. The curiosity of like, how could lead stay in your leg for 20 years? Like, and why didn't I pick it out? And then one day I think I did, or like, I don't know what happened, but it's not there anymore. But I know it was there a long time. And then this horribly traumatic event where my friend just vanished. I didn't get to say goodbye. And then just thinking about what happened to his parents, right? It was horrific. So
And when you heard what happened to his parents and when he disappeared, what feelings did you have?
honestly, I feel like I'm having them right now.
I see that.
Uh, sadness for sure, but fear as well. Like that could happen to somebody.
Hmm. And someone you knew, and someone you had come to love, and someone you didn't get to say goodbye to, and someone who would never know how much you loved him.
Yep, all that.
What needs to happen now for you to feel complete with it?
I've learned to sit with it, just feel it, let it vibrate through me. Because it was just clearly just bottled up. Uh,
What could have been so important for you to learn that God would have put him in your life and expose you to this?
it's a good question.
Did you talk about it to your parents at all? When he stabbed your leg, did you tell them? Somebody stuck a pencil in my knee
I have
and
no
bled
idea.
there?
Like
What?
I have very few memories of my childhood, so it's like it's these moments that stand out, and I've been kind of reassembling them by connecting the dots. Like as I say, I didn't recognize in my memories that it was the same kid. I could do it, but it wasn't clear that the events were related. And I've had other things that I've worked through that were similar. There was like big blocks, just gaps in memory.
Can you ask your parents about them?
I'm going to, because I don't know if they would remember it. I imagine they would. I mean, they would at least remember the story of the kid. They may not have known how my relationship was with him, because I don't even know if I knew him enough to like he could come home and hung out at my house. Like I don't. It wasn't that long of a friendship that we'd really, you know, that had happened in my memory. So yeah, very interesting though. So yeah, what was I being taught? Uh, get the lead out of your leg faster. Who knows whether that was good for me or not? Um, talk to someone about it because holding it inside offers no value. I don't recall needing to be comforted though, but I wonder if it wasn't okay or if it wasn't heard. But I don't recall not being able to go to anyone with that. The alien spaceship thing, which who knows what I saw, that might have been where I had gone to someone and I do recall being excited about what I saw and telling people and it being dismissed.
Mm.
That part clocks. So
Well, that may be an important piece
mhm.
because there could have been some alien activities going on. And we know that there are extraterrestrials among us. And do you have any recollection of seeing any aliens or spaceships?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
And my memory of this ship was more that it was like he had built it to scale like from this TV show. So in my
Mm.
mind, that's what I saw was a human-made replica of a kids' TV show ship. So it wasn't like the usual ones that people would describe, that you hear being reported. So
Did
it
he
wasn't
build
like
it
that for me.
himself?
I mean, he was 7. I doubt it. In my mind, the scale was
So,
large,
so it would have been a project he would have done with someone,
perhaps,
his father.
possibly.
Did you
Big
meet his
project.
Did you meet his parents?
I don't recall. I doubt it.
Did he have siblings?
My memory was that he and siblings were shuttled back to Jamaica to be with
Okay,
family.
so he did have siblings.
I feel like maybe he had a sister, but that's a guess.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So ask the question again. What was so important for you to learn from those 3 experiences that you just described, that they would have stayed with you and resurfaced now to give you a message?
I saw something, and uh, I don't know. I wouldn't second guess myself for what I
Um,
see.
do you feel that allowing the memory to come back in is opening a door that you shut, that you feel unafraid to open now?
Yeah, a little bit. I can feel a solar plexus heart opening.
Mhm.
My body's been gurgling away, like there's like a burp developing. It's moving up and down. Um, yeah, there was a physical sensation with that for sure. It it it's it's the previously absurd notion of seeing something that I was convinced I didn't see. That at this point, I'm seeing things, experiencing things, meeting people that like I don't need convincing anymore. And it's not my job to convince others either.
Mhm.
um,
So it's reclaiming a part of yourself
mhm,
that you rejected
mhm.
because maybe going there would have put you in danger.
Oh, that's an interesting notion. As in
Well,
danger with what happened to his parents, like that kind
parents,
of,
I mean,
yeah.
and you said it showed you, you felt some fear that anything
Mhm.
could happen to anybody, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
So maybe that served you well and no longer is serving you.
Hmm. Yeah, that moves something.
Mhm.
Okay. Then I want to go on to my next question because this has been top of mind for a couple of days, and I had a pretty spirited discussion about it the other day. It was pretty interesting. I This notion of spirit, this notion of God, this notion of energy, all these things. I was I was not on board with that. Very much there now. But every time you mention God's hand, I feel a bit of a screen go up. And like I can
Mm.
actually sense it. And I was saying to now, like, why do I have that sensation? Like I hear you, I'm with you, and then as soon as you say God's hand, I'm like, turn it off. And I was explaining to her that what that seemed to be for me is I imagine an old white man with a beard and had a cat drop. And this guy's like my old idea of God was this person that's making decisions for all. And I just couldn't get behind that. Like, how could someone be okay with children being born blind? How could they be okay with some of the things, horrific things that happen and why people suffer? So to me, it was like this screw that guy vibe. But I imagine that's not what you mean by God's hand. It's just a choice of words. And we got talking about how, do we all see spirit differently? And we got talking about design and motivation and people, seeing things from a different filter or lens. And like, do we all see God, spirit, source? But because we actually see it from different lenses, even within our design, that we can't even come to terms with that, right? We get introduced to religion either because mom and dad, which as Ra would call conditioning, or at the very least, just in your social setting, you kind of absorb it because that's what they did. But then there's also your own belief system that you came wired with potentially. So like we got talking about like, do people see this thing differently mechanically as well as the conditioning? And if we get more people that could see it that way, maybe we'd recognize that like a lot of people are fighting over religious things when really they're just confused about what they're looking at. And I was just curious what you think of that, if you've explored that. And then like when you say God's hand, what do you mean exactly? And why do you choose God's hand as your, why do you choose to say God's hand? Like, where did that come from?
There's no way to say it accurately. I grew up in an atheistic, communistic family. My brother was a communist. He went when I was he's trying to do some serious damage in my office. My brother went to China undercover when I was 11. My brother was 16 years older than me. And there was really no religion in my growing up years. Although I do come from a psychic family. So I didn't really think much about spirituality other than he's trying to knock over a light. Having read Jung when I was 15, and studying extensively about religion in my graduate school, not God, but religion. The American Indian, I read lots of American Indian dreams and stories and myths. And then in graduate school, my dissertation chairman was an expert on Nigeria and had done a study on the dreams of the 3 tribes of Nigerian people and looked at the dreams to see if there were different components. So I read all of the dreams.
Can I pause you there for a second? Something's going on with your mic. I don't know if the cat's in front of it or something, but it's almost like there's a blanket over top of it or something. Oh, it quite literally is a cat. Sorry, keep going.
So I was always interested in the esoteric aspect of life, but not per se as a religion or God. And then after she's going to knock the lamp over again. After I started meditating and had a direct experience of God, it completely changed my life. And a light that came at me that was so awe-inspiring that I stood there gasping, breathless and gasping at this light that was coming at me and enveloping me. And there was no way to describe it because there were no words, but I was being told things. And I knew without any question that my fear was of death and rebirth. And I remembered past lives. I'd already remembered past lives and validated them. So this cat is really.
You know what? Can I just make an observation? And I want to ask you a question with that. Whenever Wendy and I get into a conversation where we're like really getting down to something, our dogs get between us, and we have to. And like, one's a golden retriever, so she's like 70 pounds, and if like we're both sort of sitting on the bed talking, she's a brick wall between us, and they just for some reason at first it's almost like they don't want us to communicate. But I think it's more like they're just sensing all this energy because there's some sort of like real conversation going on, like something really new is being discovered and they can sense it. And it just seemed like that's what's going on with the cat there, because I know on my end
he's been he's been spending a lot of time with me. And he, Noble, when I was in graduate school, would sit on my desk and sit on my books and sit on exactly what I was doing. And now Luca's doing the same thing. And he just wants me to hold him, And he comes and he wants to be held and he wants to be with me. So it's very nice.
It is.
Sorry,
I cut you off.
So in any case, when I had that direct experience of the divine, there was no other way to describe it except a direct experience of God. And it changed my life. It changed, gave me a book to write and taught me about relationships and communication and reincarnation. And later I was reading Eliade's The Two and the One, and it was an exact description of what I had perceived. So after that, I took spirituality at a whole other level, and the communication with the divine as essential in my life. And even now, if I, before I get clear on something, I usually get a download. And it is a download. This work I'm doing is not me. It's I've tried to get away from design so many times, and
Yeah, so did Ra. I found myself wanting to put it down, put the genie back in the bottle.
There's every time I pull back, the phone would ring and people would show up and things would happen. So
there's something to it.
So, the reason I say God's hand is that there are ordinary things that happen in life. What Luke is doing now is an ordinary in the world. He wants attention. I'm sitting at my desk. I'm not paying attention in the way he wants it. And he's going to keep at it until he's satisfied.
You don't view it as him trying to get your attention. That's just purely a mammal wanting love. It's not some sort of nudge to pay attention to something.
Knowing him, he's just wanting to be together. And he just wants attention. He wants to play. He wants me to throw he fetches. So he often brings me things and wants me to throw it, and then he'll bring it back like a dog, but he's a cat.
Well, it's a good reminder to play, right? That's kind of how I've been interpreting it lately with the animals, is when I forget to play, that's when the trouble starts. So,
Well, we have some regular schedules. But in any case, in the way my life has orchestrated and the timing of things, it's not regular. It's not of this world. There's too many synchronicities and too many ways that things come together that you can't say it's chance. You can't say there's a higher orchestrating power that's very clear. And things, there was something that happened recently, and I thought, oh, isn't that interesting, the timing of that? And I can't remember what it is right now, but like even me remembering that I wrote 13 books with Ra, I had completely blanked that out. And then suddenly they all appear. And I went, oh, I forgot all about those. Why then? Why right at the right moment? I mean, and, you know, I've been around teaching and working with design for years, and nobody could find me. It's not like I wasn't, and I even put Beyond Human Design on the website, and I said, let people just have the materials. And I was giving things away, basically.
Does the number 13 have meaning with any of this?
I'm sure it
does. Okay.
All numerology has meaning.
Yeah.
In doing the gematria from the Kabbalistic tree of life, I have a notebook that's over 1,000 pages of numerology, handwritten in Hebrew. And I don't know Hebrew.
Sorry, you wrote that out?
Yes.
So would you call that automatic writing? Is that kind of what that is when you channel it?
Automatic writing, it was studied. It was studying. And every time I found something that had a numerology, I put it down in the Hebrew with the numerology and the root and where it came from and what its associations were. I studied the tree of life for 20 years. Every day for 20 years.
How do you study the tree of life?
I studied it using the Builders of the Adytum coursework, and they would send a lesson a week, and you would do the lesson and every day and do the homework. So I did it.
And that takes 20 years, like if you do it one per day kind of thing? Wow.
Well, yeah, it could take 15 years, but it took us 20 years. It took me 20 years.
Wow. I can't even imagine I committing myself to something like that, but that's amazing.
When I did the first 6 weeks of it, I asked my family to do 6 weeks of it and decide if they wanted to do it with me or not. Marvin, my son, and my daughter all continued for the 20 years. And we would talk about it. And then after a while, my daughter and I decided we would stay abreast and not miss. You know, if one of us needed to miss a week, we would wait for the other person. And sometimes life would get in the way. But all of us finished within a year of each other. And it was very valuable, very valuable. It went through all of the disciplines like alchemy and gematria and astrology and divination and tarot cards, and you colored your own cards. So you really got to learn the color symbolism and the symbolism of the objects in the tarot deck. And it was a wonderful study.
I want to ask you about the Course on Miracles, because that just keeps coming up. Is there any correlation to any of this? The reason I ask is that it just keeps floating up on my radar all week. I'm not seeking it out, but it keeps being pushed in front of me in various forms.
I did the Course of Miracles twice. And the statements of valuable statements.
I don't know anything about it really, so I'm other than it's just a curiosity.
You know, it's like my cosmic guidance for the day.
Oh, okay.
It's a statement to align you to the energy of the divine. And there's one for every day of the year. So it's to keep you tuned into spirit. Now, much better to keep tuned into spirit internally for yourself than externally with some practice.
Say that again, or differently.
Doing anything as a teaching tool, as a learning tool, as an expansion of your consciousness does not replace you being your own person, doing what you want to do your own way, and not putting other outside sources above your own authority.
And based on our conversation from earlier, I would usually feel a bit of a block when you say something like that, and that just went straight in. So that's pretty cool.
What does that mean for you?
It was like I was already there. I was already feeling that sense of self, that internal compass dialogue. I really feel like I've got my values in a place where they're comfortable and they're spiritually aligned. But I still had, there was an energetic charge. There was something that was still there, and that feels like we just took something out at the root a bit. And I've done that a lot, so I recognize when it happens. But that was
Are you ready to let go of the fear that if you are fully yourself, that you won't be welcomed?
Getting pretty close. I don't know what it would feel like to truly feel or believe that, but damn, it seems close.
How will you know when you know?
Straight up, if you catch me dancing, that would be a sure sign. Because I would typically say to people, I don't dance. Like, I'm a drummer. I help people dance. I have rhythm. I know I can dance because I've been told I can, but I was doing everything I could not to at the time, and I was still being told I could.
Figure eights, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, kind of dancing. I did Tai Chi Gung this morning again with Heather, and amazing. And moving the energy through that as well. Like, there were times where, you know, in a beach ball movement or something, and I could feel the energy. I could move it, I could turn it, I could sense it, I can spin it. It's cool.
Energy is real.
Yeah,
real.
Well, that's what I'd love to talk about next. That is next on the list. Can we go there? Or so it's just all fascinating to me. And where my curiosity keeps taking me, like the idea of chi, orgone, dark matter, Reiki, like these are all my notes. Neutrinos, like it's all there's this, right? Yeah.
Same thing. It's just a different form.
I heard a woman the other day say that, like, something to, I'm going to mix this up, but like if like dark matter, for example, if we could see dark matter, we wouldn't be able to see anything else because it's 70, like it was like 75% of what actually exists, right? So we don't see it, but like to not recognize that we're in that soup of what we don't know. And then to be able to feel it, touch it, know that it's there,
It is there.
is awesome. Yeah.
Mhm. When I first studied Reiki, have I told you about my Reiki experience?
We've talked about Reiki. A Reiki experience? No, go ahead.
So I didn't know anything about Reiki, and I was getting ready to move from Chicago to California. And I was in the process of packing up, and I was leaving a week later. And my office mate said to me, somebody introduced me to this thing called Reiki. And I don't know if it's real or not, but I think you should check it out before you move.
Before you move.
Before
Okay.
I move. It was, I lived in Chicago, downtown Chicago, and this was in Downers Grove, which was about 40 minutes drive. It was over 4 nights, and I went to a Reiki class, not knowing anything about it. And I showed up, and Mrs. Takata, who brought Reiki to the West, was there. And there were 3 Reiki masters in the West. And the first night, it was done over 4 days. And over the first night, they did an attunement, transfer of energy. And the Reiki energy transfers through the crown, and then it goes down through the heart center and out the hands. And then it's anchored in the third eye, the top of the head, and the heart. So I went home, and we were told, and I knew really nothing about Reiki, other than, we're in the class and they're talking about doing treatments on the head and what the head centers do. And Mrs. Takata was giving us all of her little clinical tidbits, which are in my book.
Mhm.
And we went home, and the assignment was do your head positions. So I did my head positions, and I woke up in the morning and I could see without my glasses.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. I remember that
And
part.
I was so myopic that I would not have been able to see a foot in front of me. I went, whoa, there is something to this.
Hmm.
The next day, I drove to work without my glasses. And ultimately, my eyes were about a third better than they were before I started with Reiki. So I knew the energy was real.
Hmm.
I knew it had the capacity to heal. Unfortunately, as in most systems, human design included, if you don't do it exactly the way it should be done in its true essence, it gets distorted and diminished and becomes a false system.
Hmm.
So, because there was greed early in the Reiki organization with Barbara Ray, she went and she made so many Reiki masters without vetting them that some of them began teaching Reiki with variations.
Hmm.
And so it's not the real Reiki anymore. And there is no way to know at this point, other than if somebody is a member of the Reiki Alliance and can trace their lineage to Dr. Usui, it's the real Reiki. But there's the radiance technique and this technique, and that it's not Reiki.
Hmm.
And you have that with human design.
For
The
sure.
body graph being used is not the right body graph. You look at that, I can't even read that rounded body graph. It's an abomination. It has no sacred geometry in it whatsoever.
Hmm.
and it has no relationship to the tree of life anymore. So I tend to be a little bit of a purist, and I want the energy to be clean.
Mhm.
And when I do Reiki, I still teach it exactly as I was taught it in Mrs. Takata's class.
Mhm.
And the prices was set by the Reiki Alliance, and they still charge $10,000 to become a Reiki master.
Ooh.
I paid $10,000 to become a Reiki master in 1982. Think how much money it was then.
Yeah.
I paid 10 and Marvin paid 10 and our kids paid 5.
Hmm.
And I've made 3 Reiki masters in all of my years of being a Reiki master. 3. It's not something to take lightly.
Mhm.
And people are being told they're a Reiki master for $100, $300 or $600 or some nonsense. It's a lifelong commitment as a student and a teacher. And it is not something to take lightly. And it's a
Mhm.
very powerful energy. We've used Reiki to heal bones. In fact, recently Marvin went to the orthopedist after we moved. I broke this clavicle in the ocean in 2013. And then after we moved in June of 21, the dogs pulled me over and I broke my upper arm in 2 places or 3 places and gashed my head. And Marvin recently saw the orthopedist and he said to him, oh yeah, I remember your wife. She healed her arm in record time.
Mhm. Yeah.
I sat with Reiki every day, all day. I sat with my arm on my arm, my hand on my arm.
And I don't know enough to, but the idea is that when you're holding space for that area, right? Isn't that kind of you're clearing your mind and as
No, with Reiki, you don't have to do anything. You just put your hand and it automatically turns on.
really? Hmm.
No consciousness. No, it bypasses you completely.
Hmm.
Anytime you touch anything alive, if you have Reiki, real Reiki, you feel it turn on. And when you do your symbols to do a treatment at a distance, you actually feel the energy turn on.
Hmm.
Very visibly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had some experiences where I didn't believe it at the time, but I could sense it. Like there was, I now know I experienced it for sure remotely. So,
Well, when you're doing Tai Chi Gong, you're
mhm.
experiencing the energy between your hands.
Mhm.
When you're doing the Tai Chi swim,
Mhm.
that's what you
Very
do.
powerful. Yeah, really powerful.
Very powerful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if you're doing Reiki on yourself or on someone else, you're not concentrating on it, but when you say it's a lifelong practice, is it a do you have a series of things you do every day that it's to kind of like maintenance? Is that what you mean? Or is it an intention of not bastardizing the intention or
No, it's, if you value clean teeth, you brush your teeth.
Hmm.
If you value being spiritually aligned, you can do a treatment on yourself every day.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my Reiki manual and workbook was written for 2nd-degree Reiki because I did treatments that can clear somebody's whole life if they use it and do it. I happen to do a Reiki treatment on everyone as they walk into my office. I automatically do it before I get on a Zoom. And I do it every night before I go to sleep.
So when you say you do it, it's a
I
series
do my
of.
symbols.
Mhm.
I activate my symbols. I set up who I'm going to work on. And I do a treatment, a group treatment. Generally, all of my clients, all of my family, all of my loved ones, all of my animals. And I often add in the world.
Mm.
I certainly add in the political leaders who I support. And at this point, I usually work toward world peace
Mhm.
because we're in danger.
Mhm.
Yeah, I do a few things every night before I fall asleep.
Mhm. Yeah,
And automatically, as a clinician, before somebody would walk into my office, I would automatically do my symbols and start a treatment. Sort of second nature.
Mhm.
I've been doing Reiki since 1977, when there were 3 Reiki masters in the West. I was the 10th.
I was going to ask, like, why doesn't everybody do Reiki? But I guess partly people have tried and it's gotten diluted, and others have gone for a Reiki session and not had the experience that people that had.
You have to do it.
Mhm.
Most people study Reiki and they never use it.
Mhm.
Um, you have to use it. When
Mhm.
my kids were small and they would get upset and I'd walk toward them, they say, "Don't touch me. We don't want to get better. We don't want to feel better. Don't touch me."
um, Interesting. Well, in that frame of energy, I snuck in the word orgone, and I think I've mentioned to you I've been fascinated by Wilhelm Reich's work and the orgone box, and then I experienced this thing called the egg recently, which was sort of this sacred geometry, large egg, and they pipe music in through the sides, and like it was an experience that I've not had. Like it was otherworldly. It was an amazing way to meditate, an amazing space to meditate. Why am I telling you that? I've already forgotten. Orgone and that work.
It's all real and it's all coming back into consciousness
Mhm.
because I think we're getting ready for things like med beds and energy healing devices and cures for diseases that exist that have not been made public.
Mhm. For sure. I mean, it's funny, as soon as you said that, I just pictured Star Trek and the doctor where he would just wave this device over someone's hand and they'd be better. I mean, if you could capture the energy in that device and then just go boop over and.
We already have that technology.
Mhm. Well, the FLFV thing, I tried that, like I signed up and then just got busy, and so I had protection of my house for 2 weeks or whatever, and I think it expired yesterday. And a little part of me is like, there's a or a monetary investment in it. Part of me like, if I don't keep it up, is my house unprotected? Like, my head is going through the fears of all that, right? So, but it's been a good couple of weeks. Other things have been transpiring. So then my head goes into, was it that? Was it me? Was it all of it? Um, but yeah, because how does FLV work from your perspective, or what is happening? Is it an intention to receive it, or is there
No,
actually
they have
something
some
going on
kind of
there?
technology. I don't know exactly what it is. I've spoken to the owners of the company. Um, when we lived in California, there were other times we had experiences of either putting a photograph on a machine. At one point, it was very expensive, and you put a photograph on and it protected you or your family, or I don't even remember the details of it.
Mhm.
But we've always explored those technologies. And the FLFE technology has been around for a long time. And it's some kind of technology where they can isolate different geographical areas and protect them with this frequency.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
you know, I don't especially feel the difference when I put it on and when I don't have it on. I mean, it's always on, protecting my house, and I have it on my necklace. I don't always boost it every day.
mm-hmm.
I just leave it where it is.
Hmm.
But, you know, we are getting ready for more disclosure of extraterrestrials.
Mm-hmm.
And their technology, once it's made public, will be quite innovative.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to get rid of the deep state in order for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because Big Pharma doesn't want that stuff.
No. Yeah, you see it everywhere. There's a bunch of places we could take that. How are you doing for time and energy?
I'm okay.
Yeah. I want to talk about auras and seeing them, and even technology. You've got me curious about it because in one of our calls, you had commented that you could see mine, and then you even sort of asked. You said you didn't want to comment without my permission, and I said go ahead. Like, what do you see? But it's it's
And
had
did
other
I
people.
comment?
Yep, yep, yeah. And I had a block, I think, at the time in the solar plexus, which is what I've been commonly told. So, so I found an app the other day. It's called Orla, Aurla, and so I just signed up for a month, $7 worth a shot. You take a picture, like you ground yourself, you set an intention, take a photo. And so I'm just I'm just kind of experimenting with like taking different shots at different times and seeing what it comes up with. And it, like technology is improving, and the cameras on our phones are like see things that we can't see, right? So I don't know where I'm going with this, other than I suspect that like even more of us will be able to see what you can see, for example, once the technology is given to us and put in front of us. I don't know if I'm asking you a question other than I do remember this morning thinking, oh, it'd be interesting to take a photo and then ask you what you see and then compare the results of the two, right? Like, does
It
it?
might not be at all the same, depending
Yeah,
on what
oh,
you.
for sure, right? Different perspective, different filter, different lens, everything. But it would be an interesting experiment at the same time of like, or is there correlations between what that app and camera sees?
Well, what
Yeah.
would be more interesting is for you to experience your own aura and map it out.
So how would I do that?
Feel it. Feel the top of your head. Feel the sides of your face. Feel your shoulders. Feel
Mm-hmm.
your arms. Feel the frequency that they're vibrating in.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when you move into doing Tai Chi Gong and you begin to tap into that internal flow of energy, you feel the energy around your aura. And if you work with it long enough, you'll see it.
Okay.
Do it in front of a mirror.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, why not? I'm turning on intuitive abilities as I go here, so it seems completely reasonable that that's just something to experiment with.
You know, asking someone to read your aura is a parlor game, because ultimately it's what you want and who you are and how you manifest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your choice. So getting input about you from outside can be disruptive.
Mhm.
And I like to be careful with that, especially when we're dealing in the spiritual realm. It's one thing to talk intellectually, because then there's a lot more out here space to accept or reject. But when you begin to get into the aura where the person you're talking to doesn't feel as competent to know what it is as what you're telling them, it can be dangerous.
Mhm. I want to ask about hypnosis and that sort of the unconscious, right? Um, I've been spending a lot of time using various hypnosis tracks to sort of address things that I saw as deficiencies, and really feel like it's had some pretty interesting impact.
Yeah, hypnosis can be powerful.
Yeah. But you can also go on YouTube and listen to all sorts of various things, and you don't necessarily know where it comes from. And
That's
so,
right.
right? And now said something that I yesterday I was just like, oh yeah, right. I'm sometimes just trying something, and it's to me it just sounds like music, but what's under the hood, you know? So it's a real eye opener to actually think about it that way. Like that someone at the other end, they might have a million views, and it's the title says frequency of this and helps with that, and all sounds positive, but like maybe it's not. Maybe it was put there to, you know, actually
Yep.
be detrimental, right? So I think it was her that said, uh, just pick things that are to my taste. Um, and that resonated for me. Like there are ones where I'm like, I listen to it and I'm like, I don't think I could put up with
I
this.
wouldn't listen to a hypnosis with somebody who is not vetted.
Hmm.
It's too risky.
Hmm.
There are so many bad actors out there who think they know how to use hypnosis and they haven't a clue.
Hmm. The one
You know,
oh, go ahead.
the hypnosis, when in the hypnosis that I've been trained in and do, um, we were very careful as a professional society to only allow licensed professionals to learn hypnosis
Hmm.
because you're giving somebody a suggestion.
Yeah.
I would, and now with all the frequency of music, I don't trust it.
Yeah, that's a whole separate topic. Music and frequency and the tuning and Mhm. The main hypnotist that I've been listening to, I didn't realize it at first, but I realize why I appreciate his work a lot is that all of his seems to be based around Ho'oponopono and a gratitude practice. So it always comes back to that, and that always felt right for me.
Mhm.
So it wasn't just like some stage hypnotist. It always came back to that. It didn't matter what he was doing, what he was covering, and that that's yeah. So, but I have been bouncing around because of that experiment, trying other things, and I think I need to circle back to vetting. So it's good. Thank you for that.
I think we should begin to wind up.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm kind of tired. I need to go for a walk, get some sunshine.
I'm going to go swim.
Awesome. Well, anything you want to add or sign off with, or
Well, I will be starting classes if anybody's
Mhm.
interested, and we are going to the courses at Noble Energy Wellness is up for registration, and there's a beautiful archive of all of the past webinars and materials. We will be charging for that after the first week. In other words, the webinars will remain free for a week and the transcripts, but then they'll go behind a paywall.
Okay, fair enough.
I will be teaching human design practitioners and 4 worlds, and they'll all get everything. So anyone who's interested should let me know, because I'm going to limit the classes to 10 to 12 people.
Right.
And they will be geared to the needs of the students, not to an academic curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Will be covered, but the primary is giving students what they need.
Right.
It's not my agenda, it's theirs.
Well, and nobleenergymaps.com is where people can get their free report now too, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place for new folks to start, because even just the opening introduction, I think is worth a read. Never mind getting to your own goods within it. So, yeah.
Well, the next report, which should be out in a month or sooner, will have integrated channels in it.
Mm-hmm.
And that one will have even more information of use. It's a very full report.
I know what I want to ask you. One more thing. I experiment with everything all the time, to the point where I have no system. It's just this ongoing experiment. And so
Are you happy doing it that way?
Yeah. What I'm not happy with is I don't have a good way to keep track of the results. So I confuse them because I'm doing so many things at once. I've never developed a system or a way. And being the data and pattern matcher I'm not drawn to using a journal or a notebook and just writing it down. I want to like punch in, trying this, these are the results, and then how I feel afterwards. I don't know if such a thing exists or if you have any suggestions, but as someone like you that's done lots of scientific analysis, I don't have any basis or background in that, and I don't want anything super complicated. But is there a simple way to track my experiment? Yeah.
Jot it down or put it in a spreadsheet in whatever way you want, and let it give you the right way. Let your process define it, not the other way around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I probably wouldn't find an app that would do it the way I want it. So I can, yeah, that's a good idea.
Do it yourself and do it for you first.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll see if it has any application. You have to always use yourself as the guinea pig.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it doesn't work for you, it's not going to work for someone else.
Right. Well, that's what we can come back to soon, is the patterns. And I think kind of what you're getting at with me specifically is I start a Sphinx and then I don't really understand the Maya part and then back to a Sphinx, but it's kind of starts with me and ends with me as far as my
Sphinx
learning
question
experience.
Is, when challenged, the statement, go inward before you express yourself. And Maya.
And learn to trust going inward, because I didn't trust myself. So.
Where's Maya? Maya is knowing yourself and your body and how you feel is important in goal setting and in conserving your energy. Being self-aware allows you to stay focused on your health and goals. So those are the 2 statements that I wrote for, I've written statements for all of the crosses.
That's so funny. That really hits home. I've been battling back and forth between I want habits and a schedule to care for my body and make sure I'm getting the things I want, and such resistance to it that I refuse to do it. Like I'm literally fighting myself on what's good for me still.
And then don't do it.
Mhm. Yeah.
When in doubt, you don't take action. So
Mhm.
stop pushing yourself
Mhm.
and let it emerge. And what is important will take center stage, and what you don't care about will dissolve.
Mhm. Mhm.
How about if
Cool.
we do a little attunement?
Sure. Although there's one question from somebody
Yeah.
that, if you're okay with
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
Well, there's two, but I'm gonna jump on this one because we got talking about aliens.
We can, I can answer both.
Okay, well we'll do the alien ones first. So Mundane Mystic said, on the topic of aliens, what are your thoughts about crop circles? I recently saw an image of a crop circle, got the feeling it was about the body graph and the four worlds.
Crop circles are real, aliens are real, and we need to pay attention.
Cool. There you go. Straight up.
Straight up. I have a client who has contact with aliens every single day, and they're among us.
Mm-hmm. And the other one's actually not a question, just a comment. So yeah, attunement sounds great.
Okay. Do you want to read me the other comment?
Sure. Yeah. It is from Raven. I use my four worlds charts and put them as birth charts to look at it says persona, but I think she means personal charts based off of the planets to get a deeper understanding of myself more. Which is kind of what we're
do a full reading for someone. I usually do a tri-wheel of the prenatal, natal, and postnatal for each world. Gives a different perspective.
Mhm.
Okay, so on that note, let's do a relaxation. Find a comfortable place where you can be internal and undisturbed, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And with each in-breath, allow the divine energy, the pure white light energy of love and light to come through your crown. With each breath, radiating through every cell of your body. And with each breath, keep only what is right for you and discard any thoughts, any feelings, any energy that is misaligned or incongruent with who you are, where you are, and how this time, on this day, in this place, you want yourself to be. And let that energy of love circulate around your energy field, extending 7 feet in every direction around you. Creating a bubble of protection and light that keeps your energy pure for you. And within this sphere of your energy, only what you allow in can come in. And yet, you allow your mind to receive information from all sorts of places. And what you receive and what you take in through your mind, you can immediately sort and keep what's valuable for you and discard what you would rather not deal with at this time, in this place, in your life. Know that you are whole. You are complete. And even more importantly, you are carrying a white light love energy that comes from a divine spirit that lives within you. It's the you that you know, the I am, when you say, I am. And that I am gives you your power, gives you your strength. You know when you know what you know. Stay true to what you know. And let what is not right for you simply evaporate. Poof, it's gone. As you come back into your body, ready to go about your day, think about integrating the spirit, the emotions, your body, and your mind as one total being, empowered, wise, caring, loving, energetic, all the things you want yourself to be. So be it now. Wiggling your fingers and toes, coming back into your body, opening your eyes, taking a cleansing breath, fully awake, alert, and ready to move on with your day.
Cool. Ready for softball too. Be awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great weekend, eh?
Too.
I will do that thing and end it off